Hey everybody, my name is Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and welcome to the Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of their clubs and their communities that educate, entertain, and inspire all things Florida real estate on how you can take your company to the next level. On my show today, I have Justin Cromartie. Justin and I met fortuitously when there was this mailing marketing campaign going on for a probate that we had from a client. And when I got a letter, and this guy, Justin, just kept sending the letter over every month, over and over and over. So at one point I reached out to him like, hey man, this one already closed. It's already done. But I love how you're just consistent and following up with these people, because many investors or realtors that do this for a business aren't doing the consistent follow-up. And so ever since I finally got to backstage meet with Justin, and he's a great guy. He's on the ball. He's sharp. He's always looking forward. Those are the kinds of people and investors in real estate that you always want to connect with. They are proactive and they want to help find things and solutions for people. And on the show today, Justin's going to talk about how, yeah, he's been in business for 4 years, but and heavily going after probates, but they've seen it all. There's nothing that Justin hasn't seen so far, and he's going to keep seeing it just like we do all the time, but he's seen a lot of this all the time. And he's going to talk about how he goes the extra mile for these clients, for the sellers, for the situation. He is the extraordinary service, right? The white glove service that people are looking, but he knows, and he's got the tips and tricks. And we're going to talk about that because he's really good with that stuff. And also we're going to talk, and you got to stay tuned because it'll be later in the end, but we're going to talk about how he is the king of probate mailers in Florida. I'm telling you, I keep getting letters from him all the time. The property closed, but at the end of the day, he knows that consistency and marketing is key when it comes to probate. And of course, we're going to cover probate on this show. So without further ado, Justin, thanks for coming on.
No, thank you. I appreciate that introduction, man. That was quite kind of you.
Hey, when we met, when I was calling you, I'm like, wow, he's like consistent with this stuff. And, we're going to dive into a lot of those different tips and tricks and people that really want to hear about this stuff. But before we begin, we need to know who Justin is. Tell us about Justin. Where were you before all of this real estate? What prompted you to get into real estate, and where are you now?
Sure. Yeah. So I was born and raised around New Orleans, Louisiana. Always been like an outdoorsman and things like that. And I played baseball as well. So I got a scholarship. I played at Florida International University, which originally brought me down here for college baseball. I got my mechanical engineering degree. My father's in the oil field, and I thought, it seemed interesting as well. So I moved back home to Louisiana and got a job in the oil field as well. Did that for about 3.5 years. Realized my heart wasn't in it. And I had a roommate a guy that I roomed with back in school, and we had always talked about going into business together. He was a realtor at the time. I came down to visit, and we were just kind of looking at, people flipping homes and trying to figure out what the heck's going on here. And just being the kind of guy I am, I was like, well, I'm not married. I don't have kids. I don't own a home. I don't love my job. It's one of those things that if I get to a point where I say, what if, I'm going to regret it. So I was like, let's just try this. And that was September of 2017. And here we are now. You know what I mean? So it was just kind of one of those things. I try it. If I fall flat on my face, have the confidence in myself to pick myself back up and go from there.
Right. So I've heard a lot of investors, they always remember their first deal. So when you first got in it, what was that one deal for you that was the catalyst to really moving it to the next level? Because everything in life, when you do it for the first time, once you do it, you're really good at it. Right. So what was that for you?
Sure. Yeah. So coincidentally, my first deal was also the most expensive house I've ever done. It ended up being a $680,000 deal. And it was one of those things where I knew the steps, and you'll hear a lot of mentors talk about it. They'll say, once you do your first deal, you realize what's going on. It was a really good deal. And we just it was a wholesale deal. We had a ton of investors come there. And I was like, holy moly, I knew it was big, but I was like, there's a massive market for this. It was actually coincidentally probate as well, even though I didn't know a single thing about probates at the time. I was just lucky. probate had already passed and whatnot. So, but yeah, so that's when I was like, wow, there's a good, a good market here for this. And it just kind of drove me to keep doing it more and more and more. And of course, as you do more deals, you start seeing more stuff and you start recognizing when things might be moving a certain way. And it just kind of allowed me to hone my craft little by little. But it was really that first one. It was probably about 3.5, 4 months after I started. And once that one clicked, I was like, boom, I got this. This is easy. Needless to say, I didn't know anything at the time. I still probably don't know much, but it was one of those things where I was like, I can see how this can be steamrolled into a lucrative business.
Right. So, when you're doing these now and you're 4 years in it, 4 or 5 years in it, you're focusing a lot in the South Florida area, right?
Yes.
And so in that South Florida area, it's a lot different than like the Jacksonville market or Tampa market. In Tampa and Jacksonville, you have a lot more land, especially in the middle of Florida. You have a lot more land. But in the South Florida area, you're dealing with a lot more developed areas that are there already. So what are you, now that you're in it, like what are you really going after in those areas that you're finding is great success? Like, the markets in there.
Sure. Yeah. So we focus on the Tri-County area. So Palm Beach, Broward, Dade counties. I'm actually located in Broward County, which is kind of the epicenter between both of those. So if we have to go anywhere to see a property, you're kind of in the middle right there. South Florida, particularly the Tri-County area, is growing, massively, massively. Now you do have your Tampa and your Orlando areas, your Jacksonville areas that are growing a lot as well. But for some reason, I feel like there's just a massive influx of deals over here. We do have the large migration of like snowbirds, people coming down a lot of times, either from Canada, New York, wherever like that. And they're constantly coming. We have a season down here where they come in as well. So in terms of focusing on areas, to get back to your question, there's no real area that I don't look at. I think that just because we have such minimal amount of land here, you go and not very far west and then it's just Everglades. And so everything has to expand up. And so we're all in just kind of this like tight knit box, and more investors are pouring in. You've got more international investors pouring in that want to buy properties as well. And everything's just improving little by little by little. So, we look at everything, condos, townhomes, single family homes, villas, anything that makes sense, and work on them.
With the influx of people internationally or from out of state, have you noticed that you've just had to shift your strategies or shift your markets to different markets? Maybe go to like the smaller counties, more inland, or maybe more north to like the Port St. Lucie, the other markets. Are you shifting a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So our expansion right now, we're actually just Tri-County area, but our expansion coming into 2021 is going to be to move up to those other markets. We have had a couple of properties in like Brevard County, and we've had a much tougher time selling it. Now, maybe that's because our buyers list is mainly focused on the Tri-County area, but I know that like properties don't seem to move as quick over there just because they're just they're blowing and going, right? Like if you get a property in Miami, people it's like they see Miami and their eyes light up. You know what I mean? It could be not in a great area, but they just love it, right? So those counties we want to move into, but we know that like the bread and butter of where we're going to get most of our deals for a while are going to be in this Tri-County area, just because so many people want to be in this market.
Oh, for sure. That market's just, it's beautiful. You got Boca, you have Broward, you have, I'm a Miami guy. I'm from there originally. So, I say things like Southwest Ranches and Lighthouse Points, like beautiful, completely different parts of the county, but beautiful areas nonetheless. Right. So being that you are in that South Florida area, if there was one place to get your experience when starting out and get your feet wet, just like being a lawyer in Miami, you've seen a lot of things down there and you made it a point to really talk about that. Just being 4 to 5 years in, you're focusing on these properties and these sellers, and you've seen a lot of things. Talk to us about some crazy things that you've seen, and I don't know, maybe you'll tell us, well, I haven't seen that yet, but you've seen it all.
Yeah. Are you mainly talking about the probate aspect or just in general?
Whatever you got. If it's probate, we got to hear about that. There's no way you got to pass it up. Because again, you love targeting the probates because they do have high margins. They are motivated people. So in terms of the probates, I mean, there's a lot of people that would benefit from learning that side of the perspective.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, for the probate side, I guess initially how we got into it is I had been looking at other alternatives besides just your typical, like reaching out to sellers and your cold calling, your mailings and things like that. Right. And I started thinking about something you say, right? The riches are the niches. You have your niche in there that most people don't want to deal with, right? And I kept hearing over and over that if you get into probates, you're not going to have any luck because most of the lawyers are already in bed with another investor, so they're just going to funnel leads to them, right? I kept hearing it over and over and over, and I was like, yeah, maybe that is true, but why can't I be one of those investors, right? And then you realize that there wasn't as many people in that specific niche. You're like, okay, now you're a bigger fish in a smaller pond, and not to mention, many people are probably a little scared to get into that because they're like, well, I don't know the first thing about probates, right? I don't know anything different between different types of summary administration versus, your larger administrations, things like that, and the process that you have to go through, right? And just taking that leap of faith and say, you know what, I'm probably going to stumble. Every deal's a new lesson learned, but I'll figure it out along the way and just kind of put myself out there type of thing,
I love how you transition to probate because now that we're in it, we are talking about it. So it's funny when you say the words like summary administration, or, you may find it formal or ancillary.
Right.
Something I've made a point about when I'm doing my webinars and I'm doing, the seminars, I talk about you don't have to know all the words. You don't have to know inventory and accounting. Or some of the investors, they'll say, I created a spreadsheet and it's like 1 to 3 months is this, 11 to 2 years is this. It's like, whoa, like, that doesn't happen in a summary. And so in the last webinar I had, I thought of one saying, and I just feel like this is true. Probate real estate is just another real estate transaction with a puzzle.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to know the word. So being that you are in this industry and in this probate niche, talk to us about that, like the reinforcing of that idea that you don't have to know these words. And it can be that simple.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing is if you have a seller you're working with who already has a probate attorney that they've established a relationship with and they're already going with them, then you just reach out to them and say, look, we understand the real estate side, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page with how this is going to go down, right? Because you're the expert in your field. Obviously, if I come across somebody who is in like a pre-probate situation, they need an attorney, I'll reach out to someone like you, Al, right? And then we can work together on that, right? If you're a new investor who's never done a probate in the past, you reach out to a guy and say, look, I got someone who needs to go through a probate. I don't know the first thing about this, but I want to get this deal done. I want to establish a relationship with you. Can we make this happen? And people are more than happy to help you. You're bringing them business. They're helping you learn. It's just it's a scratch my back, scratch yours type thing. So getting over that fear, and that's not just in probate, it's just in this business in general, getting over that fear of like rejection or not really being scared that you don't know what's going on. Just get that out of your mind. You know what I mean? Just take it bound by bound. One of my mentors has a saying, failing forward. So you're always trying more and more and more. Yeah, you're going to screw up. You're going to make mistakes, but that's just part of the game. And you'll learn from each different one that, I'm never going to do that again, or I should have done this, things like that. So you just not be scared to put yourself out there.
So you have noticed what I'm explaining about. You don't have to know those timelines.
No, not at all.
Because it comes down to, it's a contract. Okay, there's a family situation. What is it? Can it be solved? If it can, great. If it can't, what are the options? What are the creative solutions? Right. So the other thing that people, investors, realtors learn, they read the books, and I don't know if you read the books and the online stuff. It's like WebMD. It's never going to go well. So what have you learned from your experience dealing with heirs and the family? Because, being open and explaining that this is going to be, we'll make it understandable. We'll make it as simple as possible. It's not going to be this complicated, long process. From the investor perspective, what does that look like? Because so many people would love to know that.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So I think there's two aspects here. One, when people are just selling a house, it's usually an emotional experience. A lot of people don't know the first place to start. you tack on the probate side as well. People, again, they're not sure, how do I even deal with all of this? What's the process, things like that, right? So sitting down with them and saying, one, on the contract side, that look, we are putting a contract on your home to buy it, but we're also going to make sure we walk you through the process and make sure that you understand everything that's going on. We're going to be in contact with your probate attorney, making sure everything's good to go there as well. Also, making sure that if they have any specific needs, this is like a customer service aspect and how you differentiate yourself. Because there's a lot of deals where we're not the only buyer on there. A lot of guys, what I find, they just send an offer and they say, okay, well, we'll send it for this price. If you like it, take it. If not, whatever. I'm on to the next one, right? Whereas we try to nurse that lead, again, with the mailing, like following up consistently and saying, hey, is there any specific needs that you have in this scenario? Oh, well, I live in Michigan, but my home's in Florida. I'm not coming down there to clear anything out anytime soon. What's going on? Oh, we'll take it. We'll donate it to a charity of your choice. Oh, I have issues with getting violations for the yard not being mowed. That's fine. We'll get a guy in there to mow the yard, right? And we do that sometimes taking money out of our own pocket, but that helps us get a deal. Now, sometimes you don't get a deal and it's just like, it is what it is. But most of the time, if you go that extra mile for them, they're going to reward you, even if you're not the best price, right? You build that kind of relationship, build rapport with them in that scenario. And that helps you to move along and become a better prospect as opposed to just another offer in there, right?
Even backstage, you realize that you have a network of people that you can work with, and that in itself is creating that network. You are going the extra mile. You provide the extraordinary services, so when people need it for the estate sale, the personal property, the lawn, you are that all-in-one package, even if your price is higher, right? And so many investors or realtors miss the mark when they do only focus on the contract and they forget about all the other things that they need. Because really, typical probate real estate involves really just a house sometimes, maybe a bank account or two, or just like the car, but it rarely is like multiple other properties, unless they have a trust, which is a whole other thing, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole other convo, but like, yeah, all this probate stuff is really unique because you have to be like where you do bring that white glove service to the table.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there for sure. Just making sure that you, again, stand out from everyone else. Something I guess I can touch on too is like, it's having conversation with your seller and listening to what they have going on. I've had people in the past that needed to find a new place. They inherited it, but they needed to find a new place. But they didn't have the credit score to meet there. Well, I know a guy who does credit repair services, right? Just from me networking with people around, reach out to him. Hey, I got someone that needs this, right? And even if I didn't have a guy, I would call somebody, look them up. You can Google them real quick. Hey, I've got somebody that needs to get their repair service. You explain the situation to them. I'd be more than happy to help you, right? And now you become that buyer or that person that has someone for everything, right? And then you become that valuable person within your market.
It's a very important trait. You have to. You can't do everything, so that's why you have to build your network of people.
Right, exactly.
So with probates, because I love how you're on the probate train for this whole segment. So you find a seller and you get on the phone with them, or they get your mailing or their marketing or your Facebook ad, whatever it is, the marketing. So how are you, when you get these leads, how are you building trust with these probate sellers, the heirs, and maybe it's not trust, because even I had Ron LeGrand on the other day and he was telling me, Al, it's not just trust, it's coming up with solutions, right?
Yeah.
There's a problem and you come up with a solution. So you could go down the Ron path or the trust path, but either way, you have to build rapport with these sellers because they have to open up to you. If they don't open up to you, they close and they're going to go on to somebody else. So what are you doing? What steps are you taking and tips out there for people like to build that trust?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that I do is when I first get on the phone, the last thing I ever talk about is price on the property. I try to actually ask them a situation of what's going on. Have they reached out to an attorney? What situation? Have you been appointed as the heir, the executor? Was there a will on the property? Things like that, to get a sense of things, right? Once we have an idea that okay, we understand what's going on. I've referred people to other guys before without even talking about selling the house. Didn't even know if they wanted to sell the house until later date comes back to that once they get all that solved, right? So you basically, again, provide them a solution, make sure that they understand, okay, well, this is the next step in my process before I can even sell my home. Then once you've built that trust factor in there, then I start talking about specifics of the house. I don't actually give usually a price over the phone. I actually like to get an idea of what they're looking for. You know, what are their needs? Sometimes, again, they're more specific. I need to move all this stuff out. I want to keep it, whatever. So I get an idea of that. And then I actually, even though this takes more time, I go there and I meet them in person, or somebody else, a friend of theirs, whatever, whoever opens a place for me. So I get a good look at the house, right? And they know that I've seen it. I understand what's going on. I can give them the best deal possible. That's also how I sell it as well, because maybe I can see that, oh, your kitchen was just replaced, or your cabinets, you want, I can keep those, so I can give you more money for the home, right? As opposed to just throwing a blind offer out there. And then people are just thinking, well, he just lowballed me. He's never seen my property. He doesn't know anything, right? So going the extra mile to make sure they understand that you have done everything you can to help them with their situation before even asking about the property, building that rapport with them, and then asking what situation is going on, and then coming to the house part. And there's been numerous people where they've reached out to me, we're too far off in the numbers, we can't make it work. I asked them, what's their situation? Oh, we'll probably hold it for a while. That's fine. Well, we're looking to sell it. No problem. I know realtors who can probably help you sell it at a higher price. And I'll refer them to a realtor that I know. Or, you know what, I want to keep it and fix it up myself. No problem. I've got handymen that I can recommend to you. I got painters and things like that, right? And I've had a couple of them come back to me months later and say, you know, I thought about what you did and I haven't done anything, but I think I'll just sell it now, right? So I'm okay with losing the property as long as I'm helping that person out there. And you'd be surprised how often that comes back to you. Or somebody I did refer to, they gave my info to their neighbor who wanted to move, and he didn't want to do anything to it. And I got a really good deal on the house that way, right? And that was kind of like a word of mouth marketing because of what we had done there. So just always providing value.
It's amazing because you said some key words in there about how maybe initially they're not receptive to what you're offering, right, but like 8, 9, 10 months later, they're like, oh, we're ready. And sometimes probate deals can end up being that long-term proposition where it's just something to pick up, put down, pick up, because it's going to happen at some point if you keep the same mentality with them over and over, that you're consistent, you have the team and the network going the extra mile. All of these things together play a huge role. And so I guess, you know, are you finding with these probate properties, especially in the Broward to South Florida area, because up here you may find some properties that are dilapidated, they're vacant, the roof's in, the grass is taller than a giraffe, but like down in South Florida, it's a lot, I don't know, necessarily cleaner, but more well kept kind of community. So with these probate properties, what are you finding? Like, are they in the luxurious area? Are they like more in the Southwest Ranches area?
They're all over the place. I'm dealing with one right now where the seller inherited the property. He lives in Texas, and his mother passed away in there. She was left there for like 2 weeks. She had like a bunch of cats in there and things like that. And it's just, there's mold, it stinks. It's horrible, right? And he's like, I don't want to deal with it, right? And then other ones I deal with are just, they're just need some light cosmetic updates, right? So it's kind of, you understand with the deaths, passing, things like that. It's not really contingent upon what the house was. It's just kind of a life circumstance that unfortunately happened. And they're usually more motivated, and they're just like, I just don't want to deal with this. I want to get rid of it, type of thing. So it's kind of all over the place.
So you agree that you've seen the probate deals, they're just highly motivated. They could be great spreads, great margins for investors or realtors. I mean, they're different kinds of deals because, you know, you can find it in the pre-foreclosure because it's going through foreclosure. It could be a tax delinquency. So that's like a call to action. So some of these deals with the probates, they overlap, and it's just fascinating seeing some of this stuff in the markets. So when you get that seller and they're like this heir with this house, how are you locking up that contract either quickly or over time? But what tips and tricks are you, aside from the trust and the creative solutions, to locking that deal up?
Sure, yeah. So if they're immediately ready to sell, it's like you drop everything, you go over there and you meet them. Because odds are they've gotten a ton of mail. I've seen people that they, for some reason, I don't know why, they called me, even though they've got a stack of mail sitting there and mine's on top right there. It's also sometimes like a right timing thing. And if you don't return their call, they're going to call somebody else. So like making them a priority, as well as the majority of that I deal with are not ready to sell. And the biggest key in our game is follow up. You have to consistently follow with people. That's why you got all those mail pieces that I got. And I recognize that there's probably a lot of wasted money that goes into that, but the good deals make up for that, right? And a lot of times I think people get discouraged that they might follow up once, twice, maybe 3 times, and they're like, this guy's never going to sell. They're not ready. They don't care. And they give up, right?
Right.
And I've had people a year, 14, 16 months pass from when I first reached out to them, say, okay, we're ready to go now. And everyone else fell off, but you're the last one standing, right? You're the last one. I'm at least going to give you the first shot to look at my house, because all these other guys just sent me a letter once or twice, never returned my call, whatever. Whereas I know that when someone reaches out to me, even if they're not ready now, they are going to be ready at some point. Otherwise, why would they have called me? You know what I mean?
And that's interesting too, because that market, I mean, one probate's open in the court file, there could be like 25 mailers to that one house.
Oh, it's outrageous.
And before we get into it, but like, what do you think's that difference? Like, why is yours on top, or why are they calling you versus the others? Is it just as simple as you're answering the phone? Is it just as simple as like your willingness right there on the spot to be like, I offer all these white glove services right here? What is that differentiator in that moment for you?
Yeah, definitely. So I do think this is the tough part about mail, is that it's hard to stand out because it's just a stack. So there are times where I could be of better service to a seller than somebody else, but mine got lost in the stack of mail. It's just part of it. It's very, very saturated, especially down here. But when I do get that call, I'm the one that's going to be nurturing that lead as much as possible. And I'm going to be there consistently, not to a annoying standard, but just enough to keep them top of mind. You know what I mean? And that when they think, okay, I'm time, well, this guy's been calling me all the time, or reaching out to me, seeing how I'm doing, things like that, right? And that becomes, I think, our best feature for being represented the best possible.
So all valuable, all super valuable for people that are out there doing this stuff. So now that you got the contract, you're bringing it to the closing, the title company. One question I've always asked is, what is one of the biggest deal killers that can make that deal bust or boom? Is it title? Is it the appraisal? I've heard so many different things. Is it the sellers not letting people in? It doesn't sound like that for you. I hear so many different things that ends up being a deal killer. And in my world, I see it as equity, maybe like, because there's a mortgage, the foreclosure, the payoff is higher than what's owed, or what the value of the property, or maybe 3-4 probates, or taxes are crazy, judgments, $300,000. But then I hear somebody say something as simple as, it's just, the buyer backs out or something. It's the buyer, it's the mortgage, the lender. What is the biggest deal killer for you?
Oh, man. Well, we've had a couple of them that have gone haywire, but our biggest strategy that we've implemented is that when we get a property under contract, if we don't sell it, we are prepared to close on it ourselves and fix it up. We have the comfortability of doing that. We've done a lot of fix and flips ourselves. Prefer to wholesale them, but we'd rather, not back out of the deal if we don't have to. Lien and title issues, we usually don't have an issue with that in terms of clearing it up prior to the sale. I guess if there's a lot of code violations on the property, we are comfortable with negotiating that with the city. Our market, especially with everything that's happened with COVID for some reason, has gotten really, really tough with people like trying to go around you on deals. And so if we get a property and we know it's a really good deal, we're confident enough now where we're like, you know what? We know we're going to sell this deal. So we will actually close on the property first and then put it out for wholesale, right? So being flexible with that, but making sure that, okay, we've got a really good deal. I'd rather hold it for a couple of weeks just to make sure, and then we can move from there, right? And see kind of what happens there.
Interesting. So almost a combination of anything that can happen title wise, mortgage wise.
Yeah.
We saw something recently where it was I think the contract was like $70,000, but the judgment, there were like two judgment creditors, and it was like 300,000 or 500,000. And it was like, how do you rectify that? How do you solve that when you get in that situation? Is it as simple as like, I got an attorney that can, help negotiate those down? Is it, if the deal is divided between four sellers and that judgment's against one and it kills the whole segment,
Right.
I mean, have you ever seen things like that where it's like, it may take you 8 months, but there are crazy solutions or creative solutions you have to come up with to salvage the deal?
Yeah, that's interesting, man. I think one key thing is making sure you have a really good title company. Now, the title company we have now, they have seen it all. They've got in-house attorneys that know how to deal with all this stuff, and they have much more expertise on title issues versus what I have. We did have a property that we actually had it sold to another investor, and the day before closing, the seller passed away, and he lived in Germany. And they like documents had to get transmitted and stuff. And then it came to pass that his heir didn't want to sell, and just the whole deal fell apart, right? Just split like that. It's just one of those strange things. We couldn't salvage it. But again, it's just surrounding yourself with a good team. There's no way you're going to know it all. It's just not going to happen. So you put yourself with people who have seen those type of things, especially a good title agency who knows people and things like that. They're going to be the ones that help you in that scenario. So just establish that relationship. And then if you are a reputable investor, they're going to be more than happy to work with you because you're bringing them all your deals, all your business, right? And they know this is how you work. I understand how they work. And now you just keep feeding each other's businesses, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do closings. I don't do any title. So I know how you feel. The importance of having a good closing title company makes all the difference because, okay, the probate's done. Great. All right. Now, next, close the deal, affidavits, liens, taxes, titles. It's like, forget it. The more I hear about it, the less I ever want to do it. I'm not doing it anyway. So it's so important to find the right title companies to work with that are going to communicate, that are going to go the extra mile like you or I would. We would go the extra mile to make sure this is what you need to do. This is how you do it. Do everything efficiently. Very hard to find that rhythm. But once you find it, you got it.
Right.
And talk about once you find it and you got it, I mean, I see it when in my office, I get these, even during COVID, I kept getting the Justin Cromartie letter of, hey, the house is in probate. Hey, this is in probate. And you are the like king of mailers of probates. So we got to talk about the marketing strategies. First and foremost, when COVID hit or before COVID, I'm sure you had your strategy. And you could talk about whether your strategy shifted, your marketing shifted after it hit and, nobody could, didn't want to touch anything. What marketing strategies, mailers to have really worked for you? The cold call, the text blast, the door knock, the Facebook ads, the social media. Even Ron was talking about how like social media is working for him. I'm like, are you, is he the one doing it? It's amazing, what's working for you?
Yeah, so we've done we do a lot of cold calling, a lot of mailing. We have people that do door knocking as well, driving around. We've implemented some Uber drivers where we put like a "We Buy Houses Cash" sign on the back, and if someone calls that number, they get a commission for that type of thing. Honestly, word of mouth referrals help a lot too as well. We offer to give, if people tell me that they are not looking to sell, I say, please save my information. If you do come across somebody, we give commissions for that, right? And you just kind of spread it all the way around that way. Our strategy really didn't shift too much when COVID hit. We actually had a little bit of a downturn probably the first couple of months, and then we drastically picked up. I think because probably most people just quit doing everything, right? And now we were just keep pumping it out and seeing what would happen. And, you know, with everything that's going on, I know like obviously probates have been halted and things like that. Well, I guess have they picked back up?
They never stopped.
Well, so I'm dealing with issues right now where people are like, well, it's taking a lot longer for things to go through the court process, right?
Yeah.
Of course, not meeting as much and things like that.
I guess on that level, I guess it depends on I guess if it's Broward or if it's Miami-Dade. Although I have to say things were moving pretty rapidly in Miami about 4 months ago. I mean, there was a probate of 10 heirs and it got done in like 8 days.
Really?
Yeah. So it's you know, that's interesting. I think you're either the second or third that's told me, yeah, everything stopped. And I was like, everything stopped? Because it was like April 15th or 16th and things were just, I got an order and I was like, wow, you know, things. Wow. Yeah.
I've got a summary administration with like a will that's taking forever right now. I don't understand why it's doing that, you know? So it's just, it's all over the place. I don't know. Some people's move quicker than others, obviously. But anyways, with all that being said, we take it just
that's related. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll put an extension on the contract, things like that. We always put our closing date contingent upon approval of the sale and things like that, probate closing, things like that. So, but yeah, so we just kept doing the same thing over and over and realizing that some people's motivations might have shifted, especially sellers, right? Some of them were probably like, well, I'm not in trouble right now with anything. Nothing's going to happen. I just want to wait for a while, which is fine. And that's when we nurture that lead and we keep reaching out to them. Is there anything we can do to help? Have you given any more thought to things? What's going on? Things like that, right?
So
realize, yeah.
So what is that real number one tip or trick for you when it comes to those mailers? Because I mean, you were hitting them. Mm-hmm. Is it just truly the consistency? Or is it also, I mean, yeah, we know that you provide the white glove service, but mm-hmm. it's, you can't get to that point without the strategy of either the letter contents itself or the way the envelope is, you know, is it pink? Is it yellow? Is it this, you know, is it just the consistency or the whole package you put together in it?
Yeah, I've noticed that it's really just the consistency part of it. I mean, we've done things with changing the way our letter looks, changing our envelopes, changing the font style on the envelopes, doing we've done the envelopes with the window on them. It looks like there might be a check in there. And we've kept data on, but we really haven't had much. It's kind of hit and miss. It's all over the place. I'm not sure. We haven't had really concrete, like this is the exact way that works, besides just keep at it. And either they're going to call me and tell me, please stop sending me letters, or I'm not looking to sell, or some people never call me in general, right? But that's just part of it. And so we just do everything in our power to just be out there all the time. And again, you send 10,000 pieces of mail, you might get a couple deals out of it, but those deals more than pay for it and bring you some profit as well.
Right.
So we just keep pumping them, man.
I forgot who it was. I still look for the video to this day. There was one guy, I think he was teaching the probate stuff in California, and in his segment, he talked about how you can't just hit the homes once or twice. You need to hit it like 5 to 12 times.
Yeah.
And mailers can just really add up. I mean, when the stamps go up, that's why you need to buy like $1,000 worth of forever stamps. So by the time it goes up, you know, you still got more to use. Lock the price in, right? Like a smart investor move. I've seen that before. But all in all, I think the strategy that you bring that's different is, and it's recognizable even when I get it in the mailbox that we have in the firm, is that you're just so consistent with it. And that in itself is probably a differentiator with everybody. So because you're so immersed in probate, I mean, what would be your number one tip for young or new investors just starting out for probate? Because I think when you were talking backstage, you were talking about how people have always heard that it's just this long drawn out thing, you know, but you're in it 4 or 5 years and it's just like, you're more in it now than ever.
Right. Well, that's tough because we had been doing other things for a while before jumping into probates, and we got into the mailing aspect at the beginning. Now that's obviously a very costly thing, but I mean, biggest thing for me was, I guess I could recommend for someone just starting out if they want to get into probates, is just establish relationships with attorneys. That's really the best thing to do. Unfortunately, the majority of them are probably not going to want to deal with you, but you're going to find those ones in there, right? I get a lot of nasty emails, a lot of nasty calls, but you do find a handful in there that understand what you're trying to do and that want to work together with you. And you explain what you're doing on that end. And then if you can provide them value, again, you come across somebody who you might not be able to buy their home, but they need a probate done. Great. I can recommend you to Al, even though I've never done a deal with Al. Now you just brought value to Al. Maybe Al has something in 3 months where he's like, oh, remember that guy brought me a deal. Let me see if he'd be willing to do this, right? And now you work on like a referral-based thing, right? And now if you've got yourself established in there and you're a credible person, you do what you said you're going to do, people are going to trust you. And they're going to want to work with you more and more and more. So that doesn't cost anything but your time. You know, at that point, if you can't put the funds in there, you have to use your time to really hone in on establishing those relationships.
Right. Great tip for those that are out there that ever want to do it. I mean, there's so many out there, right? Like you don't have to know the words. You don't have to do all these things. You make it super easy. It's just another real estate transaction just with a puzzle.
Yeah.
And so if you make it that simple for people, it makes it all the better. So one thing backstage you wanted to make sure we talked about is, where are you heading next? What's the next thing for you, Justin? I mean, probate's just going to continue, but where are things headed? Where are you going? We got to keep up with Justin. So where is that?
Yeah. So we're currently in the Tri-County area. We're looking to move up the coast some more. I would love to keep moving more and more and get into those larger markets like the Jacksonvilles and the Orlandos and Tampas, maybe go West Coast and things like that, right? We've always done fix and flips. We kind of cherry pick those in there. If we can't wholesale, we fix and flip them in there. And, you know, we're looking to probably do maybe some small multifamilies, possibly buy and rent some other ones as well. They make sense for like a cash flow perspective. So that's kind of where we're heading on that spectrum of things.
Great. Hey, I mean, you know, the more you're expanding, there was another investor I had on the show, Doran Nissim. I don't know if you've ever heard of Doran. Doran is in the South Florida area, big time investor down there. We had a great discussion, and he was talking about how if it weren't for COVID, he would have still been focused in Miami, Broward, West Palm Beach. But because of COVID, it expanded his virtual network out to go more to like the Orlandos, the Tampas, the Sarasotas, the Naples, you know, more to Jacksonville. And it's crazy and it's great, you know, to hear that, you know, you're expanding out just from out of that South Florida area, because you have so much development down there already. And then there's so much opportunity elsewhere. So it's not the first time I've heard people have really expanded out there.
Yeah, definitely. So we've had some properties come up. I've mailed somebody who lives in New York, but they've got a property in Tampa, right? They don't want to sell their property in Broward, but they got another one in Tampa. Well, I've reached out to other investors there and say, hey, look, man, I got this deal. Can we collaborate on it and make something happen, right? There's that old saying, if they don't know you, they can't grow you, right? So if you are reaching out to people, building that network, that guy in Tampa might get something in South Florida. It's like, I don't know anything about this area. Let's work together on it, right? And so you keep working together and building your network like that, even if you're not local to it. Everyone gets paid, everyone makes some money, you move on from there, but now you've established that new relationship.
So, hey, Justin, all so valuable. And I'm so glad we were able to do this. I mean, we were looking forward to do this for a couple months. And I was like, right when it first started, I was like, oh, I got to get Justin on. So I'm so glad you took your time out of your day to share these little nuggets, golden nuggets for people out there. So when this gets published, this gets out there, and people listen, who are you looking to connect with? First of all, how do they connect with you? Number one, so all your social media, phone, email, but then at the same time, who are you looking to reach out to you to connect with you in the markets of the real estate world?
Sure. Yeah. Our website, unitedpropertyteam.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Justin_Cromartie on Instagram, Justin Cromartie on Facebook. I'm always connected to numerous real estate professionals in there. My email, justin@unitedpropertyteam.com. People can connect with me there. My phone number's all over the website. You can call me that way. But in terms of people we're looking for, I work with anybody. I mean, we work a lot with sellers. I work with other investors, guys that might not possibly be able to wholesale their own deals. We have a large buyers list, about 8,500 buyers. So we'll put that on their list and we'll help them sell their deals. I've worked with other attorneys in the past, divorce attorneys, probate attorneys that need to sell their properties, right? They need to get moving. We have that expertise in there a little bit as to knowing what's going on versus being a complete newbie in there. So like I said, professionals, sellers, other investors that need some help getting things started, want some leeway, want to collaborate on something, whether it's in our market, out of our market, anything like that. We've exchanged some different things before. Like I exchanged some of my probate mailing stuff with someone who was doing like a Facebook integration, right? And we exchanged like different ideas for marketing and things like that, right? So again, it's all about growing your network, working with people that you trust, and we're all in this big game together. I know a lot of us compete against each other, but if we can work together, we all grow in the end.
And that's a great mentality to have, because a lot of what everybody does, we have to grow together to make it happen. And so, yeah, while there is competition out there, you can connect with people that are like-minded professionals that are just going to want to make the deal happen. And networking is everything. I mean, networking is everything. So again, Justin, thanks again for coming on the show. I mean, everybody that's going to be listening heard an immense amount of stuff on probate. I wasn't expecting it, but I mean, we had to dive in. So anybody out there that really is interested in all that probate stuff and the probate real estate, you got Justin Cromartie here, who he knows all about this stuff, and he's just really starting. He's 4 or 5 years in, but no, he's on a roll. So he's going and going. So again, Justin, thanks so much for being on the show. And I'm sure we will be doing it again soon, like on a probate part 2 or something, some crazy story. Now that you're all going to be off the show after, you're going to go, oh, wow, there was this one. This one. Just take the paper and the pad and just go, all right, for Al part 2, we're going to talk about this craziness. And we'll make sure we have it there next time, because everybody loves to know the probate stories. So again, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you having me on and taking the time to invite me to do this, man. And I look forward to growing together as well and sharing all that. And I'm really impressed by what you're doing on your YouTube channel and your social media. So stay tuned for that too, right?
I really appreciate it. Really, thanks again for being on here. And I'm glad we connected when we did. It was just amazing time. If it weren't for all of this happening this year, who knows what this would be. I don't know if I'd be even doing the podcast now. So
capitalize on the circumstances, right?
Exactly. Use your resources and go for it and hit with it. So Justin, thanks again. And I will see you next time. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Al.
Hey, everybody. If you want more content like this, make sure you check out the Al Nicoletti YouTube channel. I have content on probate, quiet title, partitions, and the Al Nicoletti Show with podcast with Justin Cromartie. He's going to be on there. We're going to have the episode. So stay tuned next time on the Al Nicoletti Show. Take care.